Welcome GDP 2020 to another breakdown of chapters from the Crucial Conversations. Today we're going to take a look at Chapter 6, Master My Stories. In the Master My Stories chapter, a framework is provided to help us through emotionally charged conversations. Those when we find ourselves angry, scared, or hurt. Now, the foundation of this framework is based upon getting rid of a widely accepted false belief or a lie we like to tell ourselves. Have you ever heard someone say, "They made us so angry," or "what they said or did made me so sad"? Turns out, according to the book, that no one and nothing that happens around us causes us to feel anything. We aren't robots with emotions on demand buttons like happy, sad, angry. Instead, the book proposes that our emotions are formed by stories that we tell ourselves. Most of us are untrained in mastering these stories because we typically feel and then act out. But the book teaches us that the way to master our conversations is to take extra steps in between feeling and then acting out. Now, the first step is to be present. We see and or hear something, then we tell a story, then we choose how we feel based on that story, and once we decide how we feel, we then act or respond to what's being said or what has happened. Now, to master our stories and control or shape our conversations, especially those driven by high emotions or high stakes, Chapter 6 instructs us to retrace our path, to find the breadcrumbs, so to speak, and to start over. This is broken down into 4 steps. First is to act. Recognize the behavior that you're in. Are you in a state of silence or violence? Now, are you defensively just lashing out? Or are you stuck in your thought, paralyzed by fear, possibly getting ready to make that fool's choice, which is not to have the conversation at all? Then feel. Let's get in touch with your emotions. Tell the story. What story am I being told, and what am I telling that is creating these emotions? That would be the next step. Then, finally, you see and hear. You get back to the facts. We're going to strip away the emotions and ask, what evidence do I have to support this story? We are cautioned in that the first step is literally to notice the behavior. Is it high stakes, high emotion? Are you in a state of violence or silence or fight or flight? Then once you recognize the behavior, we must then exercise our emotional IQ to get in touch with our feelings. And not the warm fuzzies, but what is laying underneath the surface, shaping our anger, confusion, embarrassment, or surprise state. We do this by asking ourselves questions about the story we are telling. Is it the right feeling? Does it make sense? What story am I actually telling? Is it in the way of me being understood, or is it in the way of my own understanding? Now, this is where we go back to just the facts and separating the fact from the fiction, focusing on the behavior or the results and not just emotions. Now, have you ever been given the advice of avoiding 3 topics when meeting new people or in mixed company? You know them, right? Religion, politics, and sports. Well, when we master our stories, we want to stay away from a hotbed of what's called labeling behaviors with highly charged words. Example of this would be like, he sarcastically said to me, "If you got time to lean, you've got time to clean." Or how insulting he wasn't telling me I'm lazy with his, "If you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean." Instead, you want to focus on the behavior of what's being said. An example of this, there's a mess on the floor and the prep table. I'm tired. We just finished an hour rush. Now, all Arnon said to me was, "If you got time to lean, you've got time to clean." He pointed at the service cloth. He wasn't yelling. His fists weren't clenched. He smiled. "Hi." He wants me to clean the mess, but I'm tired. Response, "Hey, Arnon, when I finish cleaning and restocking, may I go on break?" Now, the only way to master our stories is to recognize the 3 most common stories or traps we can fall into, which will keep us stuck and lead to no resolution. We tell these stories because they either match our reality or our opinion. So in other words, it suits us. It gets us off the hook, or we get to block out our sellouts. Now, sellouts are basically when we believe we should do something, but we don't. For instance, time to clock out. Oh man, look at all those orders. I should probably help. Oh, look at the time. No overtime. Gotta go. Now, three stories that we can tell or keep ourselves stuck are victim stories, villain stories, and helpless stories. Our victim story. Now, this story here is a tricky one. It's told by us or to us to get sympathy and to shift blame. And when we tell the story, we make ourselves out to be innocent bystanders, and we don't mention what we did or didn't do to lead up to a situation or conversation that we now find ourselves in. We are leaving out facts. We paint ourselves out to be flawless, and the other person is just being mean. Villain stories. When we tell these stories, we are dehumanizing the other party, making them basically into villains, crooks, bad guys, the enemy. Its only intention is to make us miserable. Now we play up on our innocence. I didn't take over her shift. I was just trying to help. What's her problem? What a control freak. And we make others out to be villains. We tend to justify our actions and then our behavior. I was just trying to help out, get the line moving. I mean, she yelled at me. How big is that? Do a little repositioning on my day off, and she gets mad. The nerve, man. No wonder I left. Then there's the helpless stories. This is where we surrender our power or make ourselves powerless to do anything differently or to do anything. Of course, I had to correct him or her on the floor in front of everyone else. We were busy. It was a rush. We were going to the office with a halted the line. I had to shout because he couldn't hear me. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? We usually end up in this story when we turn the other parties into villains and then don't want to receive feedback or know about our own opportunities. Now, when we recognize these stories or these culprits, we can stop and evaluate and ask ourselves three questions so we can have useful conversations. These are: am I pretending not to know my role in the problem? Response: should I be repositioning people on someone else's floor? Am I turning them into a villain? Is she really a control freak or clueless, or is she just wanting to run her shift? The other question: why would a reasonable, rational, decent person do what they're doing? It is her floor. And what do I really want? Maybe I should just let the line get moving, production go. And if I really wanted to do this right now, what would I do to get these results? I would suggest that we reposition people based on my knowledge of the crew's abilities and ask where I'm most needed. Guys, these useful conversations are going to be tricky, but they can be had as long as we learn to recognize these three suspects: the victim stories, the villain stories, and the helpless stories. To help with that, here are 3 videos showing those 3 conversations. Again, guys, that's fun to be with y'all. I'm glad to see all y'all, and I look forward to us all getting to the end of this GMDP process. Have a great day.